Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm Holly if you're new, and today we're talking all about zone 2 training. Why is it so difficult on our egos and on our bodies to stay in zone 2, and truly what are the benefits? I'm gonna give my opinion on that and explain how we're going to be able to do this way more comfortably and to our aerobic benefit. Let's jump right in. Let me first give you guys an overview of zone 2 training. I'll be brief in case you already know what this is. The idea is that you spend majority of your training time during the week in zone 2 as it pertains to your heart rate zones. You're looking at 60 to 70% of your max, and you're spending 80% of your training time there. So say my max is 180, I'm looking at 115 to 120, and I'm staying there, no higher, no lower, for most of my workouts. Now, this got popular for a lot of reasons, but the idea here is that if you spend a lot of time in zone 2, your body gets really efficient at using fat stores as energy, and it also gets efficient at using oxygen mid-workout. So the more we can use each individual breath, the better our muscles can work, the more output we can have. And this got popular because if we spend a lot of time in this lower zone conversational pace, when we do build on top of that to improve our fitness, so those higher zone workouts, we can be very specific about how we use them and we don't gas ourselves out through the week. I think a lot of people used to believe that if I push hard every single day, of course I'd see results on race day. We know with triathletes, they are spending a lot of time biking, running, and swimming. So the zone 2 training got really popular with them because they're spending so many hours going and doing activity. How can we make this something that they can repeat over time without getting injured? So a lot of reasons it got popular, but the idea here is kind of staying in that middle zone for most of what you do, and the 20% of time you're not in zone 2, you're really pushing it to maximize your aerobic capacity and really pushing it to the limit so you can perform well on race day. So some of you guys might be watching this video thinking, this is the best news I've ever heard. She just told me I could work less hard for most of my training and I'll benefit from it. And that's all well and good, but if you haven't even experienced it yet, you will eventually get better and better at running to the point where you're confident enough to then set goals. And this is where it starts to get murky here. So the more encouraged you are with the running, you're gonna start to wonder, could I run my neighborhood loop a little faster? Could I sign up for this 5K? Could I shave some time off this 5K? Could I PR this? It all starts to become part of why you love it. And that's what I love about running. The thing that's tricky with zone 2 is that I'm actually asking you to do a lot of your weekly workouts at a slower speed, lower effort than I actually would want you to perform on race day. And that feels really counterintuitive at first, especially as you get excited about running. A lot of you guys are on Strava, posting on socials. You want people to see how fast you are and how fast you're getting. So it's this kind of back and forth with yourself. I know that this is supposed to pay off on race day and setting me up for really good success with that. But day to day, I have to kind of swallow my pride and know that this lower effort is getting me somewhere good. The second thing I want to talk about here is why it's so uncomfortable in the beginning to slow down. I did a video on this separately just about running slower from a form standpoint. But when you start to run, there's one speed that you like to do it at. It's the most comfortable, it's your natural stride. You might have a loop in your neighborhood, you always do around a certain pace and it feels good. But I also want you to ask yourself, why is it that if I asked you to go repeat that loop again, why does it feel so much worse? Why does it feel like you actually couldn't keep the feeling of that first loop in the second one? For a lot of you guys, you don't have that fitness base yet, and that's what I want for you from that zone 2 training. So we're gonna talk about how to slow it down, back the effort off, so that you could repeat this for longer and longer and longer, and then we'll talk about how to make you even faster with that. Quick clarification, by the way, I'm not telling you guys to spend 80% of your training time in zone 2. When you see the concept of zone 2 training, that's what they're talking about, so I was just making sure you knew it. We can do a whole separate video on what I think the best amount of time to spend in each zone is based on your goals, but that's not this video. I'm talking about the benefits of zone 2 training, but I'm not telling you a certain amount of time to do it for. All right, guys, let's get into the specifics. I, at the very least, want zone 2 training to be an option for you. I want slower running, lower output of your body, lower heart rate to feel like something you could do when you need to throw it into your training. Now, when we run right now, and I'm gonna use the example of somebody who's 3 months into their running journey, you have something you can pretty much expect every time, right? I use the example of the neighborhood loop, 5 miles, let's call it. Mile 1's always kind of shitty because you're wrestling with why you're even out there in the first place. Mile 2, heart rate's coming up, sweaty, you're starting to feel more in the zone. By mile 3, you feel awesome. Bouncing off each step a lot of the time, right? Not every day is a perfect day, but you're bouncing off each step. It feels like second nature. You know what to expect. You know the exact spot you're always at that mile, whatever. Mile 4 is pretty strong. And then by mile 5, especially in the second half, you start to think to yourself, thank God my loop is not longer than this. I'm so glad I don't have to go farther than this because it really is not feeling as fresh as it did in the beginning. And we're gonna talk about why. But I also wanna remind you that because we get competitive with ourselves, you might start asking yourself, why can't I run a 6th mile right now? It doesn't even feel like an option. Why does it feel like this is all that I have every single time? Shouldn't I be getting better at this? It's coming down to your stride length, guys. That's really, really what it is. When we are fresh in the legs, a nice, long, natural stride as it feels in our body, pushing one foot to the next feels very easy, especially with some nice bouncy shoes. We don't think about it, right? We're a nice gazelle position. We're pushing, almost leaping off, whatever speed naturally feels good, but we're taking a nice long stride. And for the beginning, we are trusting that our shoulders and hips are always landing over each step. In the beginning, we don't even have to worry about that. That is what's happening. We're nice and upright, we're pushing, we're reaching, we don't really think, whatever feels natural to us. Especially for taller people, obviously they're taking a longer step, and that's what feels the best for them. Now, when we get tired and things start to melt down a little bit, mile 5, beginning of mile 5, what's happening is, all of a sudden, your main power source and your main landing zone for impact, what protects your body and kind of matches that impact on the ground, the hips start to get lost behind you. So as we get tired, that upright position, or at least from each step matching our hips dropping right over our feet, starts to get lost. This is because we started by asking a lot of that hip to do. If I take a larger step and reach, I have farther for my hips to push over and get over, and I have a lot more for my lower leg to do in each step. So the calves and shins and ankles are working really hard, and even the feet, to make sure we can keep feeling bouncy in that original step. We just know that feeling, like I said, of getting into mile 3, and we want to keep it feeling this way. So that nice, long, bouncy run like this feels awesome at the beginning and like shit at the end. What I want you guys to do instead is think about building your run foundation from your midsection. If I have my hips and shoulders stacked, 1, I'm gonna be stronger for longer, I'm gonna have output I can depend on for longer, and I can then think about my footstep afterward. I don't want you guys to start by thinking about your feet, I want you to start with your midsection and then do what you want with your feet. But as long as shoulders are over hips and you're driving from the hips, that force can be mimicked over and over and over again. This is meant to last. Your calves, shins, and ankles are not meant to have to do bouncy push-off steps for tons and tons of miles. It gets really hard from a pain standpoint, but most of all, guys, as we lose our hips and we no longer have that force and help with each step, and this takes over, heart rate goes up. That's why it feels harder to breathe. It's why you get into those higher zones and you cannot stay in zone 2. So here's what I'm asking you guys to do. I want you guys to start stacked in the middle and just run in place for me, nice and easy, only thinking about where your shoulders and hips are. I want you to do a little bit of this so you can kind of feel the difference, and then stacking it up right here. Obviously, this is just a run in place. When you go run, I want you to think about taking steps forward, but half the distance that you normally would. The second thing I want you to think about is still catching the same number of steps per minute as you normally do. Cadence is a hard thing to identify, but when you start to realize that cadence doesn't match speed, you can run slower by just creating less output and keeping your steps high so it still feels familiar like your original run form, the natural run form that you have. So I start nice and easy running in place. Now if I leave the cadence very low and I start to sit into each hip and run it forward, this is probably the closest thing you guys can, think about when I tell you to slow down. If anyone tells you to slow down, it feels like someone's pushing against you. You probably just kind of try to take longer on each step hitting the ground, and that kind of takes care of that, but it feels like shit. What I'm saying is run in place and keep that foot count high. I'm not even covering any ground, but try to keep it nice and loose and just think of bending your knees, alternating, that little mini number 4. We've talked about it so many times, tons of videos on that if you need more. What makes me go forward is my hips. I can extend the stride to be comfortable to my body height and then the natural step of what I want to do. But if I make it a little shorter than what I naturally want to do, I know that my hips will continue to be landing over top. Safer on the body, less issues with the shins and calves, and most of all, it is the most efficient way your body can get you forward, which keeps that heart rate down. Breathing is easier. So I kind of want to work backwards here, guys. If you right now go out and run and I just tell you to go 1 minute slower in your run pace, you go from this nice bouncy run, right? And I tell you to go slower, you feel like your only option is to kind of keep the jump but shorten the stride, which feels like just a way worse version of what you're already doing. And of course your hips are behind you now. So it's kind of this like prance, low cadence. You are technically running slower, but it feels like a dance now, certainly not a run. I'm saying let's start from the foundation in the middle, running in place, and we determine how we keep that at any speed. So I'm here, I can go slow forward, relatively slow. I can go fast, but keeping my nice high cadence and short steps, but just thinking more push from the hips. It's really weird when I talk about it, but if you can picture somebody pushing from behind at a certain force level, more force equals faster, covering more ground, less force equals slower, covering less ground, but your feet don't have to change, and we can keep the same stride length, number of steps per minute, but we determine if we're running fast or slow, covering a lot of ground or less, 10-minute mile, 9-minute mile, we can start to make sense of having that control. And best of all, guys, when we shorten that stride, when we keep everything nice and stacked for longer, you are going to feel you have more gas in the tank for longer. That 6th mile becomes possible. The best part about our hip position is it's something we can control even when we're tired. What's much harder to control when we're tired is pushing off from each individual foot and transferring our body weight in the form of a run. We know that's about 3 times the actual body weight coming down on each step. That's how much force that is. When we bring it in and we have those hips in that position to depend on over and over again, even when we're tired, we can think about stacking upright and bringing that stride length in, and again, it's a lot less work. I say this because it's one of those things where until you feel it, you won't believe me. On your next run, guys, I want you to just think about, and again, if you are not sure what exactly that small step is supposed to look like, I have videos for this talking about that form, but it's a mini number 4. We talk about it between a high knee and a butt kick. This is a number 4 right up here. We're bringing it down low and our hips are under us, transferring that weight. As we take steps forward, of course, we're gonna have a little bit of a longer stride than just right under us, but it's enough that we can always make sure our hips are tucked under us and we are continuing to power from the glutes. This is what's going to allow you to think of doing a half marathon or a marathon or an ultra one day. This is the key right here, the little engine that could. I like to think of Zone 2 training as sort of acclimating to a higher level of fitness. So eventually your Zone 2 runs should feel like what your walks do right now, especially if you're more in the beginning of your journey. I want that Zone 2 to feel like the absolute low base of what you do, and we add on top of that. That is your foundation for a really strong race of any kind. The second piece of all this, and I'd argue is almost more important than the form itself, is how efficiently we are breathing. Breathing is the key to keeping that heart rate controlled. And when you have that feeling, like I described, mile 4, mile 5 of that normal loop, and you start to experience more discomfort, yes, it might be coming from the burning in that lower leg, like I explained. You're taking a lot of effort to take each push off, but also those muscles are not feeling matched with the amount of oxygen you're bringing in and you're breathing. So if you're staring at that watch, trying to stay at a certain pace, that same pace from the beginning of the run, and it's feeling harder and harder, it's likely that at this point, you are not efficiently breathing, getting enough oxygen in to match that output. If you guys have ever heard anyone talk about the anaerobic threshold, what they're talking about is, do we have enough oxygen to match our energy output? I'm not going to get into the weeds beyond that, but if you think of a long, slow run versus an all-out sprint, in the all-out sprint, you are not getting enough oxygen in to match how much lactate you're producing. So basically, you are producing that lactate faster than you're releasing it. That's why you get that really intense burn feeling. And I want to point out, in that last part of your run right now, that second half of mile 5, I was talking about your low legs are already feeling like they're doing a lot more work because they have to continue pushing off without your hips, but also you're probably not breathing as efficiently anymore either, especially because you're tired. You might have gone into sort of that hyperventilating state, and that can definitely lead to you not getting enough oxygen to match what you're doing, thus the burning increases. So we won't go past that, but I just want to explain that the way that we breathe determines how well we can continue to use that oxygen and make it work harder for us. So in Zone 2, it's very hard towards the end of your run to stay there because everything feels like it's working harder. And all of a sudden, if you're not paying attention or going slow enough to keep those breaths coming in nice and deep, it's pretty much impossible to make up the difference. So what I'm going to teach you guys right here, if you've never kind of done nose breathing or understood it, I just want to explain the purpose. Put a hand on your stomach and on your chest. I've done this with you guys before if you watched other videos, but I just want to explain. You're going to close your mouth, and all I want you to do is take a big inhale through the nose. I understand there's restrictions. Some people have blockages here, but if you can do this, do it with me. We're going to go big inhale. Try to fill all the way up until you feel your stomach expand as well. And then you're going to exhale through the mouth. We're going to go one more time. Big inhale. And exhale. Even in those 2 breaths, you can already feel the heart rate starting to come down. If we can do this when we're running, and we're comfortably running a little bit slower because of our form change, think about how much longer you're going to feel calm for in that run. Less discomfort. I can go into mile 6. Maybe I can run a half mile past my normal route, then a full mile. Once you start to practice deeper breathing, that diaphragm breathing at certain periods in your run to keep resetting the system, and we've made the form more efficient, so you need less of that oxygen, it all comes together to really make everything feel like it's going smoothly. So here's what I want you guys to do. Next time you go out for your run or even a run walk, I want you every 8 minutes or so to take 3 nose breaths on your own time. You can practice this first just in walks. If you're not quite to a full run yet, that's fine. But if you are running the full 5 miles, every 8 minutes, I want you guys to go big inhale and exhale. You're still running. Try to slow down a little bit. You know, I want you to practice that anyway, but you're slowing down and you're taking one of those. Take a few normal breaths, kind of do what you need to do, go into a second one and then a third one. Continue running, next 8-minute mark, you do that again. I don't know why I chose 8 minutes. I think 10 is a little bit too long, especially depending on what mileage you're doing right now. 8 is a good number to kind of like once you're through the 3 breaths, which will probably take you 30, 45 seconds as they're spread out, you have time to kind of not think about it and then go into it. But it's always kind of at the forefront of your mind. And you will start to see how much better you feel every single time, 30 seconds after your 3rd breath. You will understand how much more air you're getting in and how much it's working for you. And if you are burning in your legs and you slow down a little bit and go into one of those nose breaths, you're seriously going to feel it work immediately. If you don't believe me, go try this on a hill. Shortening that stride, hips are under you, that mini number 4, kissing the heels to the ground, and taking a few of those nose breaths when things start to get tough, you will feel yourself not in that crazy hyperventilation state. You will feel like, oh wow, I can actually calm myself down, get that heart rate down a little bit, which means I can go for longer. So zone 2, staying in zone 2 also comes down to matching your oxygen as best you can with every single breath to what you're doing. Guys, in the beginning, it's gonna feel very much like suffocation. You're gonna feel like you have a bag over your head. Very normal, and just trust me when I tell you it gets better, and the more you do it, the less scary it will be. If you can only do it during a walk right now, that's great. And if you can eventually start to work some into your runs as you slow down, get that heart rate under control, and then try a nose-only inhale, do it. It will get easier and easier. And the best part of it all is it's now a tool you have to continuously control that heart rate, like I said. So that's that. The other thing, it helps with side stitches, guys. If you ever get those cramps in your ribs and you feel like it's only because you ate too close to your run, it might have a little bit to do with that. But the big inhale through the nose helps release and relax all of these muscles, which also gets rid of those side stitches. So those cramps can go away pretty quick, even at a higher pace. Remember, we are trying to get more efficient so that on race day, you are running faster, but it feels like less work. That's the goal. And the last kind of fun fact I want to share with you guys is that if you've never experienced runner's high, or you don't think you've experienced runner's high yet, it might be that you haven't been in zone 2 or zone 3 long enough to hit that point. A lot of people don't experience runner's high, that feeling, until 45 minutes in. And if right now you don't feel like you can run for 45 minutes because you're going out too fast, we just found the answer. So I hope that this video gives you your first runner's high. Get down a little bit on that output, figure out how to make this last for longer, and be in that zone for longer so you don't have to think about stop, start, stop, start. I really hope you guys get to experience that because it's one of the best feelings in the world. A final reminder to you guys that running slower, even though you're capable of running faster, can actually set you up for a lot of success. In your other workouts, when you're pushing it on a speed day, you're at the track, giving it everything you have, with a nice strong base of aerobic fitness built on your zone 2, you can really push the limits and, as I said, work much harder for longer because you've got that breathing and form dialed in and it's not gonna feel as shitty, so you can go for longer. That's where those PRs start to be built from. I love you guys. Let me know if we want a separate video on how to kind of break up our zones in our training, how much time in each one. It's different for every goal, but we can do that. If you have questions related to anything I talked about today, let me know. I can't think of anything else. I think we covered it, and I love you guys. I'll see you very soon. Bye.